What is up, Frag fam? Corbin here again from Northwest Scent. So today we're going to be doing a video that has been a long time coming. This is actually a video topic that I wrote down when I first started my channel, and now we're finally getting around to doing it. I've actually been hinting at this video more recently. This is going to be my top 20 Aromatic Fougeres or barbershop fragrances. So 20 fragrances. This is going to be a huge list, so I'm going to be splitting this into two parts. You guys probably already saw in the title, but this is part one. So this is fragrances 20 to number 11, and then the second part is going to be, of course, fragrances 10 to number 1, and this list is going to be ranked, which I don't normally do. So this is me ranking the top 20 Aromatic Fougeres, again, from my collection, from my least favorite to my most favorite. I've tried many more than I have here on this list, but these are my absolute favorites overall. These are the ones that I really found bottle worthy. So if you guys want to find out what this list of fragrances are and how I've ranked these, then please stick around. But first, let's roll that intro. Alright guys, so like I already said, this is going to be my top 20 Aromatic Fougeres ranked from my least favorite to my most favorite, again from my collection, so I enjoy all of these fragrances quite a bit. Let's not hold off any longer, let's get into the number 20 spot. Okay, so starting this massive list off here at the number 20 spot, again, this one may be at the back of the list, but I still really enjoy it a lot, and this is an all-time classic. This definitely had to be here in this video. This is coming from the house of Azzaro. This is the original Azzaro Pour Homme, and I actually have a little vintage 30 ml here. I do not know the exact year because I cannot find a batch code on this, but I'm pretty sure just from the bottle design, this is from like the 80s, maybe the early 90s. So this stuff smells really fantastic, especially for the price. This is one of the best bangs for your buck as far as a fougere. Again, you can find like the 100 mils for 25, maybe $30. Sure, they're reformulated a little bit, but they really do smell very similar, I would say, even to this vintage stuff. Now this one, it has lavender, you get oak moss, leather, and then some anise, and I think there's maybe some cloves in here as well. So this one is a little bit spicy, but it gets really soapy in the dry down. The opening is amazing on this. Like I said, it's very fresh, very lavender heavy. You do get a nice spice, and there is a soapiness, but as it dries down, you lose kind of that freshness and that spiciness, and it does get a lot creamier and soapier, kind of like shaving foam, and pretty dry as well. There's really not much sweetness here to this fragrance. It's a classic for a reason, and they're still making this today because it smells fantastic. It's fairly popular. If you guys have not had the opportunity to check this one out, you really should. I would say this is one of the best just OG Fougeres out there. So again, here at the number 20 spot, it had to be here on this list, coming from the house of Azzaro. This is the original Pour Homme. So up next here at the number 19 spot, we have a really solid indie fragrance from an up-and-coming house, and they make very affordable fragrances. Now this one, it is technically an Aromatic Fougere, but I find this to be more soapy, and when I say soapy, I don't mean like shaving foam, I mean traditionally soapy. So this is coming from the house of Authenticity Perfumes. This is just called Barber Shop. You know, like I said, I put it in here because this is technically an Aromatic Fougere, and it is called Barber Shop. That is what they're going after, but when you smell it, you don't really get any kind of vintage old school vibes from this, and that doesn't even have to be a classification or a requirement, I should say, for a fougere. Not all fougeres smell old school, but if you guys smell this fragrance, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. This one doesn't really have a green spicy side or like a kind of dry shaving foam style. It's not very creamy. To this one is just soapy, fresh, very kind of shower jelly, but not like Bleu de Chanel or Dior Sauvage. It's just different from that. It is really kind of its own thing though, which I give it props for. I haven't really smelled anything like this in another fragrance. Nonetheless, it's called Barber Shop, so that's why it's here on this list. Very pleasant, very clean smelling, and very affordable as well. So if you guys are interested in something like that, you can definitely check this one out. And again, from the house of Authenticity Perfumes, this was Barber Shop. So up next here at the number 18 spot, we have one that I think for other people, it would maybe make it up higher on their list. This one does get some hype, especially in like the niche community, but I still find this one to be a little bit hard for me to wear personally, not because it smells bad, but it's very intense and pretty sweet, especially for an Aromatic Fougere. And because of that, again, I have a harder time wearing it, so that's why I'm putting it here at the back of my list. So this is coming from the house of Nishan A. This is B612. This one's really interesting. I honestly don't find the note breakdown revealing whatsoever to how this smells. According to the note breakdown, this features lavender, oak moss, geranium, and tonka bean, so all of the notes you're supposed to get in a traditional Aromatic Fougere, but this one does not smell traditional to me at all. This comes across very woody, very resinous, very balsamic, and a little bit kind of licoricey, you know, and it kind of has like this sharp, bitter sweetness to it, very strong, again, very sweet as well. There's tonka bean in here, like I said, I don't really see where else the sweetness in this could be coming from, but really is quite sweet. This is definitely, in my opinion, a cold weather oriented fougere. This thing lasts all day, again, very loud, and that sweetness just makes it just a lot more intense, but it is still very pleasant as well. If you guys are after something that is an aromatic fougere but very unique and different, definitely look into this one. It is really solid nonetheless. So again, here at the number 18 spot from the house of Nishan A, this was B612. Okay, so up next here at the number 17 spot, we have a recent discovery for me. I picked up this fragrance only a few weeks ago. I have worn it a couple of times. I really am enjoying it quite a bit. This is also a brand new niche house. They just came up here in 2021, so very, very recent. They're putting out some pretty solid fragrances. This is my current favorite from their house. So the house is called CMRRA Perfumes, and this fragrance is Fjord. Man, this is so transportive. I really am liking it, partially just because, again, this takes me somewhere else. This actually reminds me of Alaska, which I did spend time living there. This literally takes me to fjords, you know, after the name. That's kind of what it's supposed to be evoking. It's very cold, icy. It is kind of green and aromatic. And there is kind of this wateriness to it, but not like saltiness or oceanic. It doesn't have anything like that. It's like a fresh wateriness. Again, the lavender here is very brisk and fresh, and then you get kind of this greenness, so you can almost smell like the woods around you, and it is very cold smelling at the same time. So very transportive, a really nice, and I would say somewhat unique aromatic fougere as well. This one is doing something different, but it is still very wearable in my opinion, and I think it's pretty versatile for an aromatic fougere as well. So definitely one I recommend you guys check out if you guys can. I know they're a newer house and they are based out of Kuwait, so I'm not entirely sure how they're doing shipping and stuff, but if you guys can get this one or even try it, definitely recommend it. This is a new favorite of mine. So again, here at the number 17 spot, coming from CMRRA Perfumes, this was Fjord. Okay, so up next here at the number 16 spot, this is what I would call the perfect barbershop fragrance. And now you're probably wondering, okay, so it's at the number 16 spot, but you're calling it perfect? What does that mean? Well, when I say perfect, I don't mean that I think it's my perfect barbershop fragrance. It's not my favorite here on this list. Again, that's why I'm putting it here at the back of the list. But what I mean by that is I think this smells very traditional. It's not doing anything super unique or different. If I had to think of a fougere or a barbershop fragrance that smelled exactly like how it should smell, this would be it. So this is coming from the house of Maison Martin Margiela. This is at the Barbers. This one being a traditional smelling barbershop fragrance, you're gonna get all of those traditional notes. So this does have lavender, it has geranium, it has oak moss, and then of course tonka bean. So, you know, it is fresh, aromatic, it's a little bit icy, it is very green as well, and does have a little touch of powdery sweetness, but this one also has some basil, again, adding kind of a green side to this. In the end, this one is creamy, very aromatic, again, a little bit powdery sweet, a little bit spicy. Again, like I said, this isn't really doing anything super unique or different. This is just down the middle, in my opinion, how a barbershop fragrance is supposed to smell. And that's why it's here on this list, because if you guys are after something, you're trying to get an idea of what barbershop fragrances are like, I think this is a great one to check out and kind of get started with. So again, here at the number 16 spot, a very solid fragrance. I do like this one quite a bit. Again, from the house of Maison Martin Margiela, this is at the Barbers. Okay, so we are just over halfway through part one of the top 20 aromatic fougères list. Now, this one I really like a lot, and honestly, it did surprise me how far back I put it here in this list. But again, similar to B612, this is one that I do have a harder time wearing just because it is very dense and intense. I do prefer this one to B612, which of course is why it's farther up the list. Nonetheless, just because it's here at the number 15 spot, that is not a bad thing at all. Again, all these fragrances are here for a reason. I enjoy all of these quite a bit. I really do find this one to be very enjoyable and unique as well. So this is coming from the house of Notton & Wilson. This is Gravitas Pour Homme, and this is Dan Notton's Mr. Smelly 1977 creation. So a fantastic aromatic fougere. Again, like I said, it's similar to B612 in the sense that this one is very dense and intense. In the case of this one, you get patchouli and vanilla as very dominant notes. You do get lavender and oak moss as well, and then some citruses at the top. So this is almost like a fougere that isn't so much soapy. It is kind of green and aromatic, but you get a very bright citrusy component at that top, and then the vanilla and then the patchouli add kind of a indolic, almost like edible vibe to this, where it almost comes across like a gourmand. So this is like a fougere gourmand, and almost to me personally, this smells like a lemon meringue pie with some aromatic components. So I know that sounds pretty interesting. It is very wearable though. It is a very solid fragrance. Again, just because it is very intense and sweet, I do have a harder time wearing this one year round, but A fantastic fragrance nonetheless. I definitely recommend you guys check this one out if you guys are after something that is aromatic but very sweet as well. This is probably one of the sweetest fragrances that's going to be here in this top 20. So I really do like this one a lot. It does sadden me where I put it here on this list, but it's just how the cookie crumbled here in this case. So again, at the number 15 spot from Notton & Wilson, this is Gravitas Pour Homme. Okay, so up next here at the number 14 spot, we have a sadly discontinued fragrance, and this is the only discontinued fragrance I'm putting here on this list. Normally I would leave discontinued fragrances off of my videos, but in the case of this one, it's so iconic. So many people used to talk about this stuff, and it still does get a decent amount of talk. It had to be here in this video. So this is coming from the house of Yves Saint Laurent. This is Rive Gauche Pour Homme, and man, this stuff is beautiful. If you guys look at the bottle, it looks like a shaving foam bottle or can dispenser, whatever, and that's exactly what they're going after. This smells like shaving foam. Again, very creamy, spicy, aromatic, very similar actually to At the Barbers from Maison Martin Margiela, but this one is a little bit different. I find this slightly fresher, a little bit spicier, and a little bit sweeter as well, and I do prefer all of those changes in this one, which is why it's here farther up the list. So if you're after something that is clean, fresh, soapy, creamy, but a little bit sweet and spicy as well, this is a great one. Obviously, again, it's discontinued, so you're gonna have a really hard time finding it, and I certainly do not recommend paying the jacked up prices. Maybe you can get one of those cube shaped bottles easier, maybe they're more affordable, I'm not really sure. But again, I'm putting it here in this video just because of how iconic it is and how good this stuff is. So it had to be here in this video, of course, again, at the number 14 spot. Coming from the house of Yves Saint Laurent, this is Rive Gauche. Okay, so up next here at the number 13 spot, we have another newish pickup of mine. I think I got this about a month ago, maybe a little bit over that, but it is still pretty new to my collection. I really do like this thing a lot though. It really blew me away when I first tried it. Now, technically, this is not an aromatic fougere if you look at the note breakdown and then the classification, but to my nose, it certainly smells like one, so that's why it's here in this video. This is coming from the house of Histoires de Parfums. This is 1828. You know, like I said, this is not an aromatic fougere technically, but in the end, it really matters about how it smells, and this one smells to me very much like an aromatic fougere. I get an aromatic side, a little bit soapy. This one is more in the earthy green side though, and it is quite spicy as well. The notes are citruses, eucalyptus, nutmeg, pine tree, cedar, and then incense. I can definitely actually get that incense. This does have a smoky quality to it, and like I said, it is quite earthy as well, almost like the smell of dirt, like a soil tincture kind of thing, but not in like an off-putting way. I think it works really well in this fragrance, especially with those woody notes. And then the citruses offset all that kind of like heavier notes and then makes it a lot more wearable, and then the eucalyptus adds a really unique quality to this as well. Really fantastic smelling. You guys should really check this one out, and in general, check this house out. I think Histoires de Parfums is very slept on. You know, I contributed to that as well because I only recently started trying these fragrances, but everything I've tried from them, I've really enjoyed. This currently is probably one of my favorites. So again, from the house of Histoires de Parfums, this was 1828. Okay, so the next fragrance we are going to be talking about here at the number 12 spot is a very modern smelling fougere. There's nothing vintage or old school with this one. While it does still smell like a fougere, this one is doing a lot of things differently, which I do give it props for. Very appealing as well, just very versatile in general for a fougere fragrance. So this is coming from the house of Tom Ford. This is Fougere d'Argent. So this features Akigala wood, tonka bean, and then of course lavender. And in the case of the lavender here, I do find it more powdery than like fresh, but it does still bring kind of a lighter feel to the fragrance. You do get a lot of intensity from the Akigala wood. It brings a balsamic kind of resinous feel, a little bit licoricey and spicy, and then woody of course as well. And then the tonka bean in here brings a powdery sweetness. There is some other stuff going on in here, but those are the most dominant notes to my nose. In the end, like I said, this stuff is very appealing and very modern smelling. While it does still kind of harken to a fougere, this thing is doing its own thing, which I really give it props for. And again, if there was a fougere out there that I had to recommend to somebody that does not like stuff that smells old school but still kind of has a fougere feel, this is one that I'm gonna send them towards. So definitely check this one out if that applies to you. If you guys are looking for something that is a fougere but smells very different and modern, one of my favorites that falls under that category. So again, from the house of Tom Ford, of course, this was Fougere d'Argent. Okay, so we are finally at the last fragrance here for part 1, and this is a decently seductive and oriental kind of spicy take on the Aromatic Fougere while still being very fresh. This is also coming from one of my current favorite houses, which is Raja Parfums, and we are talking about Danger Parfum pour Homme. So like I said, you know, this one is seductive, fresh, oriental. It does have a lot of citrus in it with a very fresh lavender note, not so much heavy and powdery. Some cumin in here as well, bringing a very prominent spiciness, and it's not super BO smelling like it can come across sometimes. I do find it very pleasant here. It works with some ambergris, which actually brings kind of a aquatic feel to this fragrance. Again, just adding the freshness. Now there is kind of a sharp, astringent vibe to this one as well, kind of similar to what you get with like juniper berries sometimes. And while there's not juniper berries in here, again, I'm kind of getting that vibe. Maybe it's coming from some of the fruity notes, but it's just something to note. I think it works really well in this fragrance. Again, it is very fresh and invigorating, but it is kind of oriental and spicy as well. A very interesting contrast here in this fragrance, working with that aromatic lavender, something that is really underrated from the house. I definitely recommend you guys check this one out from the house of Raja Parfums, whether it's this one or the Parfum Cologne, it doesn't matter. They're all great. And it's here at the number 11 spot for a reason. It's a really solid fragrance. So again, coming from the house of Raja Parfums, this was Danger Parfum pour Homme. Well, there you guys go. That was part 1 of my top 20 Aromatic Fougere and Barbershop fragrances ranked. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys did, I would really appreciate dropping a like just to show your support, and then that way more people can see my videos on YouTube. Additionally, if you want to write a comment, maybe just let me know your thoughts, as well as some new video ideas or topics, that would be great too. And since you're down there doing all that stuff, if you've not already, if you could hit the subscribe button and then the bell notification, that would be amazing. That way you stay up to date on new videos whenever they get released going forward. But with all that out of the way, that's all I really have for you guys today. So I hope you have a good one. Stay healthy, stay wealthy, and smell great.